You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call. I've got Brad Hunt here beside me, and today our guest is Marcus Sorensen. And Marcus, you own Blue Coolers.
I do.
You were on the podcast last year. We met, and folks, you want to go back and check out that earlier podcast. If you don't know about Blue Coolers, we covered in detail kind of what gave you the gall to believe that you could just start a cooler company. We've been using the coolers better part of a year now. We love them, and we're partnered up. So if you use the code GRITTY, you save. The coolers we talked about have some great designs that are basically. Most coolers should have wheels based on what we do. You guys came to the market with some actual wheels on coolers of the size that we use for putting our elk and deer and everything in there. That's more. And the other great part about the coolers is that they are. This is a sales pitch, folks, but also it's true. The coolers are price point wise where they should be.
Yeah.
And they're comparable quality wise to the top tier brands that are out there that are way more expensive.
As we said in the last podcast, the other brands.
Yes.
So yeah.
Like Voldemort.
Shall not be named right now, but killer product there. But we wanted to sit down with you, have a conversation, because you don't just do coolers anymore.
We've been busy. Yeah, we don't sit still.
A lot has changed.
Just like you guys. Yeah.
And I think there's a good fit here because lately we do a lot of backpacking. We work with a lot of backpacking and outdoor companies. But the past couple years, we've been drawing some tags and getting some hunts and some adventures that are...
I would say more fun hunts, like camping out of a truck or trailer in a way.
And I did a podcast on a trailer build where I took a utility trailer. I'm converting it into a camp trailer, basically. Tons of interest in that. I got a cubic mini wood stove put up in the corner there. Used it in the late season. Super stoked to have a lot of plans for continual build in between in my spare time. You know,
which there's none of.
But a lot of what you've got coming to the table that we're about to talk about is ideal for our fun hunts and for our family sort of outdoor lifestyle camping type stuff. So yeah, with that said, laying that foundation, tell us what has gone on over there.
So in February, we acquired, merged, however you want to call it, a company called Caddis Sports. And we're now operating under that Caddis Sports banner. Caddis Sports is... probably one of the products people are most familiar with of Caddis is float tubes.
Yep.
I've been making float tubes since the early 80s. Great brand, great products there. Make a lot of pop-up shelters, so canopies. They've been doing those a long time under Rapid Shelter brand. And then they have two other outdoor gear brands, Mountain Summit Gear and Alpine Mountain Gear, all under the Caddis umbrella. So the Blue Coolers brand will wrap into that portfolio of brands. And this has actually been a few years in the making for us. The owner of Caddis Sports, it's a gentleman named Darren Courier. They're based just outside of Portland on the Washington. He actually doesn't claim Portland. He claims Washington. He says, I'm from Washington. So they're on the Washington side in Vancouver. It's a beautiful area if you've been there. But he and I have been working together for a few years, and he's getting older in age and wanting to move on to do new things. And they had done a great job building this company, mostly through just traditional retail. So you'll find a lot of the Caddis Sports products currently. If you go into REI and Fred Meyer and Bass Pro and some of the traditional kind of blue blood retailers in the outdoor space, you'll find these products. Our thought was, I think there's more we can do, both from a product development standpoint and just getting these products out into other channels like online and some of the things that we do better. So that's kind of where the idea came from. And I think most importantly for us is his company and ours are very like-minded in just kind of our belief systems and how we approach things and our product positioning too, which is important. Like, just like you mentioned with Blue, we try to be a value option. We're quality, but value, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a little difficult to accomplish. You can't always do that. But Darren and Caddis had managed to accomplish the same thing. So all their products you'll find in that same sweet spot of like high quality, but not
overpriced,
going to break the budget, right? So that's kind of how it all happened. And here we are, scrambling to make it work.
Yeah. So you named a few products that Caddis brings to the table. What are you the most excited about? Hey everybody, if you like the show and you want to support us, head on over to Mountain Ops. If you're in need of a new merino hoodie, or you want some workout clothes, or you just want a little pick-me-up. I like the Mountain Ops Ignite, especially like the pink lemonade flavor. It's a good one. I recommend that. Head on over to Mountain Ops, use the code GRITTY. You're going to save, and it's going to help us keep bringing you the show. Thanks for tuning in. Now, let's get back to the show.
It's hard for me to say one. I do love. I think the Caddis brand and in the float tube space is underutilized currently. I think there's some opportunities, and we're working on that currently, developing some cool new products there that we think can just sort of shake it up a little bit. Yeah. Right. Again, still being price competitive, right? Because it's one of those spaces, especially fly fishing, man. Like, you look in that space and everything's so expensive. Yes, like those guys, they just all get so expensive with all this stuff, and it gets a little elitist sometimes. I feel like there's a lot of people that want to get into it. But
I picture a lot of fly fishermen like golfers. You know, they kind of have the same. They run in those same circles.
I'm a budget golfer and budget fly fisherman.
So like, we're trying to bring fly fishing to everybody a little bit more, right? Like, it doesn't need to. You don't have to pay $1,500 for your float tube or your pontoon boat, right? So that's what we're trying to do. So I'm excited about that project.
Yeah.
I like a lot of our camp chair equipment.
Yeah.
Is really pretty cool, I think. Like, we've got a great assortment of a variety of like really high quality, unique camp chairs. We have this quilted love seat camp chair. It's my favorite. I take it everywhere, and it doesn't just need to be like out camping, right? Like, this can get you to sports games and, whatever. Campfires, hanging out in the backyard. I mean, it everywhere. So
that's what I've been like, as we've been talking off and on, and I was informed of this acquisition, whatever, was like, I started looking for the family stuff because baseball games a lot, chairs, like I got chairs for everybody, but we're also with the family camping a lot more out of the camp trailer or the truck. I'm not doing these big backpack hunts with my family like I'm normally doing with us. So when you have like the camp kitchen and the cots and the chairs, you're just hitting a much bigger niche, I would say, of individuals that can relate more to the products that you have.
Yeah, I would say like we're a comfort camping specialist. That's where we excel. We do have products that also, we have anodized cook sets and backpacker sets and some certain tents that are more backpacker focused. But a lot of our products are more designed to just, pull up with your trailer, set up camp and have a good time.
It's Western hunting summit style.
Exactly.
Gear.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Yep.
We're getting ready to head up there to Montana to do the Western hunting summit with our friend Ryan Lampers over there at Stealthy. And so, this is where the Caddis chairs and the Caddis gear really.
We have to get you guys geared up for that.
Yeah, like last year, we shoved the coolers full of buffalo meat. So they did a live buffalo butcher at the
That's
Western
right. I remember that
stuff,
because we sent Ryan a bunch of coolers, I think, for that.
Yep. So we filled up coolers and stuff with a full cow buffalo, and it's neat because people got to see that. Like, I didn't think it was going to be that big a deal, because we've butchered a lot of animals, and there were so many people there that were like the questions of how do you do it this way, how do you do that? They hadn't cut up an animal like that before.
How many coolers did it take to fit a buffalo?
So we had the 110s, I believe. We had 2 of those and 2 smaller ones. We didn't get all of it in there. We were fortunate we had somewhat of a cooler, like a walk-in cooler there. So part of it we got to hang in the walk-in cooler.
Yeah, that's a big animal.
But there were at least 2 110s and then 1 or 2 of the next size down coolers, 65s or whatever.
They butchered it and ate it.
Yeah.
Like 50 people.
So we processed a lot of that.
Ground it up and cooked it like right away. So what we couldn't get in there, we were eating pretty quick.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So
but it worked great. Bringing a buffalo in. And then putting it down, but then skinning it fresh, breaking it down, showing all these guys who a lot of them have never, they're coming to this event to learn.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, it's hands-on. It's the real thing. You sit there and you see how you would butcher up an animal. Gives them a lot of confidence going into the mountains. But when you break down an animal like that, that's where, and you're throwing it into a cooler. By the time you get your ice in there and all that, you're like, I need to have a few of these.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and you could make a 800 quart cooler, but
you can move it.
What are you going to do with that?
Yeah, it sits in the back of the truck.
Actually, we have a competitor that makes an 800 quart. I think they actually sell it as like an ice bath. Yeah. I've seen.
Oh,
so which makes some sense. You just close the lid. And,
I suppose. Yeah, I've seen some.
If you need to hide any bodies,
yeah, right.
You want to get yourself one of those.
So how's the acquisition been going?
It's busy, right? Like we knew we were taking on a big task, which is fine. Like that's what
made you want to do it? Is it because you're youthful?
I don't feel youthful, man. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's
you guys were already.
Do you want to get into the business side?
I kind of do.
Yeah.
You were already.
We're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good. Yeah. So here's what I'd say, and I've heard this from several people, and I lived it, and I think it's absolutely true. If you're a business and you're doing somewhere in between, especially like a consumer products business like us, if you're operating in this range of like $2 to $4 million in revenue a year, it's tough, man. Like you're just doing it all, and you're grinding, and you're never really. There's like this glass ceiling you just keep bumping up against, right? Because you don't have enough resources necessarily to go hire the people you need and do the things you want to do to scale.
Agreed.
Right?
There's like these tiers because we've been part of a few gear companies, startups. You get to like that, like you said, 2 to 4, and then you get to that like 5 to 10, and then you get from like that 10 to 18, and a lot of companies you'll get to those spots, and what it takes to go from that $4 million a year to now
into that next tier.
To the next tier takes so much.
It does.
And then once you add those little components, like boom, now you're at this next tier. But then you hit that wall again, and it almost seems impossible. We've been working with some guys that are like, we're not worried about getting to the 18 million or the $20 million mark. They're like, getting from 20 million to 30 is going to be next to impossible.
Yeah.
It's going to be impossible. Yeah. And then another company, we're at the $6 million mark. We can't get past it. We've been here for years. We just can't get past it. What do we do? And then, I think, Brad worked at a couple of places for years, decades. They were like at this one tier.
Boom. You just keep hitting. Yeah, it's exactly right.
All of a sudden, it's like you
have to have some.
Once you have that expansion, and I think what's hard is maybe not so much now, but because it is a pretty big thing. But there's that point in time where you're like, I don't want to spend this money on marketing yet, or I don't feel like we need to. But then when you do start dumping a bunch of money into marketing, and you have the right people in the marketing team to put it in the right places, down the right avenues, then all of a sudden it's like, and personnel too, like a personnel expansion and how they run that marketing, whatever. But when you dump it in there and then you do have great marketing and then you have a good team behind it, all of a sudden you can go from here to just
Yeah.
up here. And
You
it doesn't work that way all the time.
You got to have some sort of like it. In our case, it was an acquisition, but some sort of kind of like catalyst event, right? That sort of like busts through that ceiling.
Yep.
It can be a marketing. I think I told you guys last time I worked at a company called Ready. It's called ReadyWise now. This is many moons ago.
Yep.
But similar thing there, where we would get our catalyst was some sort of major event like Ebola or virus or something, right? And it just boom, you like bust through that ceiling. In this case, we just kept hitting it, and this acquisition has allowed us to do that. And make a couple really key hires of people that I've worked with in the past that are great acquisitions, new parts of our team, and it's just it's going to allow us to keep progressing.
It's like adding new tools to the tool belt every time, just efficiency and quality work.
I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. Like, I'm interested in making content, going on adventures, capturing them, telling those stories, inspiring other people, and that kind of thing. But I'm also trying to run a business at the same time. And so, you know, I've developed a great relationship with our audience, and hopefully they seem to have a lot of trust in our opinion and what we bring to the table. But I'm not that much of a marketer. You know, I throw out some films and I say, hey guys, help us out, get in on this giveaway, or hey, here's a coupon code on a podcast. And so then we have big corporations who want to work with us, and they come along and they say, hey, yeah, let's do this thing. We'll participate too. And we'll track your sales over here. And then we'll take your same video and then we'll do stuff with it over here. And we'll track the sales that come from that venue. Okay, cool. And they'll like triple X my sales. It's the same video, it's the same face, same everything, same promo campaign, all of it. And maybe we'll sell $100,000 for a company in like a week, and they'll do 300 over in a week. And it's like, Brad, what are we doing wrong? Like, why don't we have the marketing infrastructure? Why don't we have the content? They used all of our stuff. We just don't have the machine to do what they do. And therefore
it's a full-time job to do Google ads and Facebook ads and all the marketing, like, you know, again,
and it's always changing too.
It creates a team and understanding where it's hitting. Like, sometimes it's Snapchat is your top sales, sometimes it's Facebook, sometimes it's Google.
That's where I've come to learn. Like, I'm not really motivated by the sales portion. I just want to make a living. I'm motivated by being able to do what we do. And so having great partners helps. But, you know, I will probably never be that type of marketing thing because it's not where my passion is. My passion is doing this stuff over here, filming and sharing that. And I think when we're able to partner with companies like yours and others with our passion, with your product lines, we have this really good marriage. And what it does is it allows us to keep doing what we do. You guys grow. It's a great situation. And like I said, I don't want to do that stuff. It's not in my wheelhouse. And growing is hard. Like, Brad's my only employee.
Growing the right way is hard.
My brother used to work for me. I got Brad nowadays. I've only had at best one other person employed, and Brad's more like a partner every year than an employee. But trying to scale up, it's really hard. It is really hard. So,
and I would say, and still keep that same culture that you've built, right?
Well, for me, freedom.
So people trust you.
Yeah.
Because you can probably go and hire a bunch of Joe Blows out there and put them out. And,
I know how to push.
You know, like, but
I know in the short term how to punch the money button. I know like how to like leverage the trust we've got and make a lot of money in a year or two window. What happens 3 years from now?
Yeah.
4 years from now, when you've used up the trust, you just
Mm-hmm.
threw out a ton of volume of stuff and you promoted all this stuff where people were willing to pay you an arm and a leg.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a short-term win, you know.
And so in our world, the same thing exists. It's just from a product standpoint. Like we have to build trust too, and we have to grow in a way where, with our brands and our products, that people trust them, and that we don't violate that trust in some way by, I don't know, supporting certain causes maybe that might not fit with who we are.
Which is a problem I have with a lot of. I look up like what companies are promoting and supporting, and then we say, no, we don't want to work with you, because
there's pressure in the marketplace right now for companies like ours to. I mean, you know, you got to put the black square here. You got to
push the pronouns and the bios and all that stuff.
Like you got to still live by who you are, but that can short circuit your ability to grow in some ways, right?
It's called blacklisting. Basically, but it goes both ways.
It does,
and I think there is a culture right now of Americans really embracing and looking forward to supporting brands that support freedom, support the Constitution, support America in general, and I feel it. I feel like the pendulum's swinging a little bit in reverse. I think so. You know, when you look at the Bud Light situation and you look at some of the stuff that's happened in the last little bit, you feel it, and I'm glad of it. I mean, all I want is freedom. You know, if someone wants to live this way, that's okay. I want to do this over here. I want equal voices on both sides. I don't want America to be monolithic in either direction. I think I'm right, and I think I'm always right most of the time, but I don't want to impose my attitude on someone else. I want people to make their own decisions. So, but you were mentioning earlier about 4 million, 2 to 4 million, you know, you're kind of, and you're kind of stuck, can be stuck at that. It's hard to grow beyond that without something, some catalyst happening. We look at that too, because in the cooler category, you can only make so much breaking into the cooler category with all the other cooler companies that are out there and all the new ones popping up every day.
Space,
And your product line is coolers. How many different coolers can you really come up with? And so at some point, we're looking at this with other brands we've worked with. They got to add some more SKUs, some new product lines. They have to have a product roadmap that takes them into a higher revenue stream. Otherwise, they don't grow.
I mean, coolers, you're right. Like, here's a good example. I think it was last week I saw a review that there's always, top 10, this and that and the other. Guy did a top coolers review. There were 37 coolers on the review. Right. You kind of sort through all that mess. I will say we were third on the results, and one of the highest value products on there. So good performance. But yeah, for an average consumer, you see that and you go, I don't know, man. They're all kind of the same, aren't they? Right. And look, like at some level, they are all the same. There are, but if you're really getting into it, there are differences, right? And that's all we're trying to be. We're not trying to like invent a cooler that's going to take you to Mars. Like we're just trying to make a cooler that keeps stuff cold and has a few extra little convenience factors to it, and it's a good product. But then to your point, now what? Right? And so that was another big part of it, is like we're developing this trust with consumers in our products, and we believed that we can extend that out to other products and build a good experience for people where they can, we can grow our business. Yes. Of course we want to grow. But our consumers can also have a resource where they can come and say, hey, you know what? I know they make good coolers, and look at that. They got some camp chairs. I'm going to retire that piece of crap I bought at Walmart that cost $8, and we're filling up the landfills with them every year because every step down the supply chain, everybody's just producing these things for a loss, and they end up in a landfill at the end, year after year. Like, let's make something quality. All right.
So you're looking at Caddis and you were seeing an alignment there where you can come along, add that, you bring in all the new product lines to what you were already built with the trust and the basis that you built, plus whatever skills you're coming to the table with in terms of your marketing and your vision. Putting those two things together, you're seeing an opportunity for a lot more growth than had you not made the acquisition.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're seeing that right now. And also, it works vice versa too, because Caddis had some great relationships that they'd built over the course of the years with.
Now the coolers can grow.
We can find a way to get those in with those relationships that much easier. And they had, the gentleman, Darren Curry, that I mentioned to you that we bought the company from. I mean, he's a wealth of knowledge. He's been in the industry forever, and I lean on him all the time for it's just another resource we have to grow in the right way, right?
Let me ask you though, is it scary?
I'll tell you the scary part. This is kind of behind the scenes. Our acquisition is supposed to, if any of your listeners or if you guys have ever tried to acquire a company, it's usually a disaster. Like at some point in the way, there's a disaster. This one took about 6 months longer than it should. And we got to this point at the end where we literally were supposed to close. We have containers of product arriving at their warehouse. We have employees lined up. We have everything in place. We've got hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in it. And the bank that we were working with calls me 5 days before we're supposed to close. And we had a hard close date. Like at some point, the seller, he was just like, "You better, it's either now or never." Like, I'm done screwing around with this. Yeah. And bank calls me and says, "Your loan was denied," with 5 days to go. And that was the moment. I mean, it was just like, I didn't sleep the night. It's just like, okay, I don't know how we maneuver out of this.
Right.
Somehow we did. There were some good people along the way, including at the bank we were working with, that helped us navigate through that and get to the other end. And that was one of those. It was like, why am I doing this? This is why don't I just go get a job, like working for somebody? It's a lot easier, Yeah. I don't know. But we did it, and we're here. So
I relate in a different way, just by being entrepreneurial in nature, and I don't work well for other people.
I guess I don't either at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's one of the things I realized was as I got older, because I will annoy other people over time. I will be independent. I'll have my vision, and I learned that I was a lot happier being, in charge of everything in terms of, the ultimate level of freedom that I wanted to have. It cost me in the short term, it was a lot more stress, a lot more, but it was stress I wanted.
At some level, you want your pants on fire, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I
alive.
tell myself that too. Like, I'm doing this to myself, so I must at some level like it. And I do. I guess I do, right? Because I would be bored if I wasn't.
You're betting on yourself, number one, right? Like, you're betting 100%. On yourself, which I think is the best bet any man can make.
At least you control it, right?
Yeah.
I don't control what happens when I put money in the stock market as much as I want to think I do. Yeah. I don't know.
I worked at a Fortune 500 company. They fired all 250 IT personnel and replaced them with a team in India. They kept like 4 of us. I was one of those 4 people. And it was like, what you think, you thought you were, betting on the company and that you were going to be employed forever. And I saw these people lose their job overnight.
And overnight. Like, how's that security, right? Yeah.
Years ago, I had the option, film, go on hunts, make videos of other people, of other companies, work at this company, so-and-so, film their guys, film these guys, be paid to film and produce hunts and shows and all of that, or do it for me. Tell my stories, film my friends, my family, the hunts I want, and be in charge of it all. that's betting on me. And the thing about when you're betting on yourself is if you win big, you won it all big. It's all yours. If you fail, you lost everything, but it's all you. At the end of the day, there's something thrilling to me about being, you win it all or you lose it all.
Yeah.
There's no like halfway.
And I think sometimes when people hear that, they think only monetarily, right? They think like you made $1 billion or you lost all your money. Like it's not just, I know for you guys, it's not that. I mean, you've mentioned it multiple times. It's that you accomplish whatever that vision is you had to, you accomplished it. Right. And part of that for me is gaining, like you mentioned, freedom. It's carving out a certain lifestyle for me and my family that allows me to show up on a Wednesday to my kids' basketball game or whatever it might be, and the world doesn't fall apart, right?
Yeah.
Or I don't get fired or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like the world's still going to fall apart if I disappeared on a Wednesday, but I don't get fired.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's not just money, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of it. That's almost how you measure whether you're winning or not in some way. It's like
it's a metric, for sure.
It's not necessarily the only thing.
There's also something about, like, for example, I work more with Gritty than I ever did with my old jobs. Everything I did in the past. Yeah. I work way more hours on this, but it doesn't feel like work.
Yep.
There's something about it where I'm excited to get up in the morning. I'm excited to meet that goal and move to the next goal and the next goal. And you don't get that. Like Brad too, back to the freedom thing. You know, I've always, back when I worked at a Fortune 500 IT firm, you know, I would show up. I negotiated to work from home as many days as possible. And I negotiated that they would pay me.
This is before the work from home days, right? Yeah. Before COVID.
That's right. Yeah. Way before. And what I was looking for was to be managed by deliverables, to say, okay, what do you need me to do this year, in this quarter, this quarter, this quarter? And then I'll give you that, but don't ask me where I am, how long I'm gone, how many hours it took. Like, just give me what you need to be done, and then leave me alone. And for me, that allowed me to bust my can, you know, for 3 weeks, so I could just screw off for another week during hunting season, or I could manage it how I wanted with the ultimate level of freedom. When I'm my own boss, I don't have to clear that with anybody,
right?
You know, and in the end, I work harder than I ever did before.
If you're doing it right, you are, right? You're going to work harder.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
It doesn't feel like it, though. And Brad, you know, I wanted to work it out with Brad where, hey, stay at home. Be at your kids' games. Be hyper flexible. Just get this task done, and I'll never bother you at all. And I needed the right person, because when I made that deal to some, they couldn't handle that. No. They couldn't handle that level of follow through, discipline, responsibility. They'll procrastinate, not get the work done, not meet that deliverable, and then leave you hanging. Yeah. And then it doesn't work. You have to have the right person who's like, okay, I see this is the job that needs to be done, but I can have ultimate flexibility but I got to deliver the job. Hey, if you like our show and you want to support us, you can head over to Canvas Cutter. They sell these awesome bed rolls that we've been using for years. You can just throw these suckers out on the ground, camp in them. You see I got my sleeping bag inside. Can't recommend them enough. They also have duffel bags, some of the best you've seen, Canvas duffel bags. They've got beanbag chairs as well. They call them the dirt bag. They got wall tents. Head on over there, use the code GRITTY. Check it out. Cannot recommend the bedrolls enough. Let's get back to the show. It takes a certain person for that.
Yeah, I think also that person has to be able to just problem solve stupid things too, right? Like you gotta be able to, like, you have to be able to say, I need you to do this, and then go do it. And if somebody needs somebody to tell them every step of the way, that probably doesn't work in that type. Because I have the same situation, right? Like,
you're right.
Everybody we have works remotely, and The only people it works with, we have a small team, and I like it that way. I hate I really try not to micromanage people, and sometimes I'm better at than others, but I just don't like doing it, right?
Yeah.
And the people that it works well with are those that can just, you give them a task and they go do it, and they don't have the confidence to make some calls on your own and know which things I can just do this, and I don't need to ask permission.
I think we had that discussion a lot.
Yep.
Where I was like telling Brad, look, winners make decisions. They don't have to be the right decisions. Mm-hmm. A lot of times early on, they're not the right decisions, but the winners were the ones who made a decision and moved forward, right or wrong. And it's the people who can't make a decision that stay low on the totem pole, that don't achieve. I've watched a lot of people fail upward because they make decisions.
Yeah, just go into politics.
But it's like there is something powerful at making a decision. When I realized that, I started to understand that, my judgment was pretty much as good as most, if not way better. Mm-hmm. And so it emboldened me to be a decision maker, problem solver. And if I got it wrong, I got it wrong.
You got it wrong, yeah. And you own it and you move on, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Brad, on the other hand, he's like one of these, like early on, solve the problem in a way I found completely dissatisfactory.
And that's the thing, like you have to go like, all right.
But that's what I asked for.
Yeah. Well, I think too, is you build a team as you have done now with your group of guys, and like as we've done, you're always, somebody's always good at one thing or two things, and somebody's good at one or two things over here. When you bring those together, then you both succeed. And so like that's with us. Like I love the relationships that I have with a lot of companies, a lot of people, because I am doing the talking and building those relationships with the people that are associated with those companies. And that's something that I enjoy. Mm-hmm. I've always been that way, whether, I'm working at a backpack company or wherever, or a foreman on a gang or something when I was on the railroad. But it was like, I liked taking the role of leadership, but also taking the role of being the person that, as making some decisions, but also making business decisions that's both going to help us as a team. Yeah. And I just found that feel like I'm good at doing that.
Yeah,
stuff.
I don't.
And you see it like this is. You don't see it as though, I would guess, like this is Brian's thing and whatever. Right. I'm clocking in and I'm earning my check. Like you look at it like, I mean, this is me too. Like this is a reflection of who I am
for sure.
And that's the type of people that can succeed.
And well, and I've tried to structure and we have to revisit it each year, but structure compensation with Brad in a way that he's invested, because if we grow, he grows. Yep. If to me, it's like, I want to make sure best I can, and that evolves over time, because Brad's value, as he gets more and more skilled in the marketplace, his value goes up. Mm-hmm. And I don't just get to act like Brad didn't evolve over the last 2 or 3 years into something completely different than what he started as. Mm-hmm. And now if you look at Brad's market value now compared to a year ago or 3 years ago, he's over here now. Well, as an employer, as someone who runs a bit, I got to figure out how to make sure that I'm competing with the marketplace.
To keep up with that, with what Brad's growth is, right? Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's challenging, but I feel like there's multiple ways, right? There's with Brad, and I've thought about this. There's monetary and non-monetary benefits across the board, and they're both highly valuable. So, and for me, I've taken non-monetary benefits over the years, because I always say this: I'm rich in lifestyle, but I'm not really the richest guy you've ever met.
Nor am I.
Like if you go to my house, there's not a lot of toys, and it's a pretty simple living. But if you look at the places I've been, the gear I get to use, like the adventures I've had, I'm as wealthy as anybody could be in that line. And eventually, what I would like, Mark, is for them to coalesce into one. Yeah. So the lifestyle matches the wealth, or the
That's when you're done, right? There.
That's right.
Once you get that, it's like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. So, and I do think I heard Dave Ramsey years ago. He made this. Maybe it was Gary Vee actually. He said, "You don't have to be." Like, for example, podcasting. Let's take podcasting. Brian, you don't need to be the number one podcaster in the world. You just need a core audience that values the product that you put out and is there for you. And if you love what you do and you do a good job and you work really hard and it's your passion, it's almost impossible for you to not at some point be in the top 10% in your area. Like, you can easily start to become 10 years in, like when it comes to filmmaking, hunting filmmakers, I feel like I'm in that higher level. Well, 13,000 hours or something of film time editing movies. This, I think, somewhere where I'm at now. That's a lot of hours. That's a decade of effort that has brought me to this point. So I feel like, based on that, it's what Dave Ramsey mentioned, or Gary Vee. I don't remember which one it was, but when you work at something you love long enough, it can end up becoming a wealth builder for you. Mm-hmm. But if I was at my IT job as director of change management at this firm I was at a long time ago, and you look at my annual salary over a decade and blah, 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 and how much I'd put in my 401k and my Roth IRA and how much I might invest in some real estate and so forth. As of this day today, I would have more money had I not done the gritty thing.
Yeah.
I'd have more money. In 5 years, the way things look, I think I'm going to dwarf what I would have made if I had stayed.
Yeah.
But this is all maybe, right?
It is.
But I can see this incremental, an exponential snowballing effect. Mm-hmm. And it's not just affecting me, it's affecting Ryan Lampers, it's affecting Bryce Bishop, it's affecting Brad Hunt, it's affecting what I've built, and what I've done is making others exponentially wealthier as well, incrementally, and I can see it snowballing. Yeah. And it's pretty exciting to be at that point where, oh wow, after years of just grinding it out and doing okay, there's actually a significant amount of wealth that might spin out of this. Yeah. It's pretty exciting.
Well, I think you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's kind of like, I've been listening to a lot of like investors and how they've got to where they are and where they started and stuff, because I'm young, but I'm like trying to make a lifelong, valuable situation out of what I'm doing to prepare for my kids and stuff, because they're getting older. And so it's like, they say, take investments. You're from 0 to 100,000 is the hardest thing to do. Well, once you hit the 100,000, then you can put it, whether it's Roth IRAs and all this, you get the compounding interest on high interest rate accounts and stuff, and where you put your money. Then to go from 100,000 to 900,000 within like a year and a half.
Yeah.
They say it takes minimum of like 7.5 years usually to get to your 100,000. Within a year and a half, you're at 900,000. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, it's 8 months, you can have it at 5 million or whatever on investments. And I think that's the same situation with time and filmmaking and podcasts. It's like, you put 10 years of, however many hours of time where you've got to 13,000 hours of time making films. It's like, now you're to the point where you just hit that next stage, that next plateau or whatever, that you just put yourself in another level of group of people, growth, and you're not the same person. Yeah. And I think can be laid across the table to whatever it is you do.
Investments.
Yeah. And like, I've thought a lot about this over the last few years. I think like the delayed gratification of owning a business or, even if it's just investing, right? Like having that ability to delay gratification. Yep. It's this tipping point, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and it's different for everybody, but I know in my life, like we've my wife, myself, my kids, there's definitely been for the last 5 years a delayed gratification aspect to this.
Right,
and I'm constantly like, I promise you this is working, even though it doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
And just be patient.
Yeah.
And, because they see like so-and-so down the street just did this and just got that and just went here and da-da-da-da-da-da, and you just got to be patient. You got to hold the line and just keep going.
You just define the definition of entrepreneur, right? Like delaying gratification. It's kind of what we're engaged in, right? I decided early on that I wanted to make hunting podcasts and film. And I wanted to go to all these places and do all these things, and I wanted to film it and I wanted to share it. That I made that decision on. I also accepted the fact that it wasn't going to make very much money for quite a long time. Mm-hmm. And I also decided that whether it made money or not wasn't the point. The point was to go do the things and hope that it could make money and believe that it would make money. But I didn't have any, like...
You were more focused on the product you were developing. And I think I agree with you. Like if you knew, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but you knew if you go out and you create a quality product that that is interesting, informative, and well done, that the money part of it will take care of itself eventually.
That was the hope. And
that's kind of how I approached it too.
But being an entrepreneur, there's no guarantee. You knew that too. It could just not ever make a ton of money.
That's where the fear factor comes into play, right? Because you're just like,
but the willingness.
Here's COVID. Wasn't planning on that. But right? Here's this, and
the willingness though to gamble and to be like, well, if it doesn't pan out, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it anyway. Because I had friends that were sort of coming up with me at the same time. Lots of people that were at film school with me, good friends, close relationships, people who started a little bit of a business. And then, a couple years in, they're like, no.
Yeah.
No.
It's not for everybody.
I'm delaying too much of my life and
too much delayed gratification for me. I need to gratify.
And they went and got a job and went and lived a different kind of life,
which is fine, right? That's.
I agree. That's for them. For me, I was okay with the route I was going on and gambling heavily that it may or may not work out. That's a lot to say. I'm going to work for 5, 6 years, 8 years, and maybe I tread water and I can make some bills, or but that, like I said,
you've done some cool things along the way too, right? Like, life's about living.
Yes,
right? And you're like, over the last 8 years, I did this and this and this and this and this, and I didn't sit behind a cubicle all day or whatever it might be.
You do run into people who will say something like, I wish I could do that. And so many of them are very capable of doing the same thing. It's not when they say, I wish I could do that. Most of the time, I think it goes back to the delayed gratification. The sacrifice required to do it, living in this little place, having, paying cash for a couple of cars and not going on all these trips. And that's just something a lot of people aren't willing to do in trade. Because I didn't do anything special. I just traded a lot of, the comforts and the wealth and the trappings of life and some of that other stuff that people want. I just traded that for something else. It just was a trade I was willing to make. But now you fast forward and it's like, again, going back to, wow, it's actually turning out that this is a wealth building vehicle, not just an income, but a wealth building vehicle. But it's taken time. The challenge has been great. I can see that with you too. You got your coolers, you got an income. In some ways, you almost buy yourself a job.
Yeah.
It's like, but then you you grow, and then you're bringing in the new product line, the new business lines, and now it's like, wait a minute, I can see some real wealth building here. Plus, I'm doing something that is mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
all mine.
Let me ask you. I got a question for you guys.
Yeah,
I'm now interviewing. So my son just turned 18 and he's going to college, and I'm kind of in this phase. How do you figure out what you're doing in your life? And I was horrible at that, right? Like, I'm still figuring out what I'm going to do with my life at some point, like this my life. What do you, and you hear people's advice all the time, right? Like when you say, when somebody asks you, what career should I go into? Like, what should I do with my life? And you hear the advice given of, and maybe I'm giving away my question, Chase, you should go after your dreams or do what you love, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
So I don't know. I'm obviously the youngest one in the room here. I don't spend a lot of time with a lot of people, other than I want to be around those that like know how to grind and not necessarily make the money, but are eventually going to make money. Brian is a perfect example of that with Gritty. Ryan's the same way with Stealthy, Bryce Bishop. But I look at, as a young person, you're single. And like with me, I think I'm kind of the last generation where I'm like, yeah, college was, if you're going to be a doctor or a dental hygienist or something, sure, go to college. But in this time with technology, I'm like, you can make enough money to live until you actually figure out what you want to do. Mm-hmm. So go explore. I mean, you might want to be a tradesman. You don't know that. You might want to own a business. You might have these ideas. And so as I go back to this because I've been hanging out a lot with a pretty young guy, Rhett Meek, who owns like Soul Energy and stuff. And he's 24 years old and he has 5 other businesses on top of that. And he's that way. He's like, I started college and I dropped out within a year or whatever, because he's like, it wasn't for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do yet. Mm-hmm. He's like, but I'm young, I'm single, I don't have all these responsibilities. Like, as long as I can make $1,000 or $1,500 a month to pay for whatever my place, or because he's like, doesn't have fancy cars or anything like that. He's like, just enough to get me by. He's like, if I can make that much, then I can explore all these other avenues. And so like, as I look back at my life, I started college, then I dropped out, put my wife through college and stuff. And again, there are places and things that you have to have a degree for, doctorates, whatever it may be. But I think we're in a perfect time right now with marketing or entrepreneurial stuff like AI. You can figure out how to make enough money to live, but that 18 to 25 year old range, like, go explore, go figure out maybe what it is that you want to do. You're probably going to fail 10 times, but gosh, like, go back, and if I could go back in time, that's what I would do. I mean, I got married early on, but I'm like,
what do you think? Because you guys have both like sort of, you've done it. You've gone after what you love, right? Like, probably you're one of the few that have been able to like, I love hunting, and I'm going to make my career out of it. Right?
I think there's a number of books, like, for example, your son could read, that I have my kids reading, that I think are super helpful in this stage in life. One of the books that comes to mind is called Start.
Okay.
And this book was written by, I forget the man, he worked for Dave Ramsey at the time. Mm-hmm. And it talked about the practicality of a day job, and then the passionate career that's the hobby job on the side. It talked about doing them simultaneously to an extent, until the one finally could pay the bills. Yeah. It's a very practical book. Okay. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say he does have a passion, or a young person has a passion to do a certain thing. You're not an expert overnight. You can't make a living at it right away. Mm-hmm. So you have to do the responsible thing and actually get a job, pay the bills, be a man, take on all of that. But you can penny pinch. You can find ways to live frugally while you build this other thing at the same time. And I think ultimately the best entrepreneurs, the people that are the most successful, are the people that didn't get a loan to do it, that didn't mooch to do it, that didn't, they paid their way and also figured out the secondary path.
Yeah. And it took a minute too, right? Like,
It's slow.
Yeah.
The other book, one of the quotes that Gary Vee gives, and he wrote The Thank You Economy, Just Crush It, a few of those books. And in those books, he mentioned there was Jab, Jab, Right Hook, a few books, all of them. I recommend all of them. And in those books, one of the things that he said was, would you rather be crying in a Porsche or smiling in a Camry? And that stuck with me because I realized that money doesn't make you happy. Success and wealth isn't the indicator of happiness at all. In fact, if you got food, water, shelter, basics, needs met, some transportation, your happiness, that's all you need is like survival level stuff.
Yeah.
And then you can be freaking happy.
Yeah.
Because it's not about wealth and money and status that makes you happy. Happiness comes from something else. Yeah. Figure out what that is. To me, it comes from actually trying to adopt moral responsibility and living a truly good life. There's meaning in that. Trying to tell the truth, work hard, be honest, like those things come with it. Be chaste. Those things come with it. A level of, I guess, value that you can't. That you can't get from money and a career and success. Like you can indulge in hedonism, but it doesn't actually fulfill you in any way. And when you figure that out, the happiness isn't really related to wealth. You can start going, okay, I'm going to pursue happiness instead of wealth. Then you can start going, okay, well, I have a lot of, I'm getting a lot of dignity and value out of working at McDonald's, but paying my own way, buying my own car, doing my own bills. And guess what? I'm happy being a responsible, hardworking, picking up the moral cross and doing all the things I can do. Meanwhile, chase the dream over here. Get in that pathway. I sort of went down the corporate road, college, BYU, and then I did a whole bunch of, I did well in the corporate world. And I rose up in that world. And it got to a point where I'm like, okay, I have money and it's a good job. I have security. I feel like I make a difference in people's lives, but in the scheme of it all, it's not that meaningful of a job. Like I make a Fortune 500 company money every year and that's it. And it felt like I want to do a lot more than that with my life. I want to leave a legacy behind of, I don't know, something that I believe in out in the open. I want to influence people to live a different kind of life. And that's when I started to pursue a more meaningful vocation than what I had been doing in accounting and finance and IT and governance and compliance and all that stuff. I was like, I want to do something that has more depth. This is right after my wife had cancer and we had fought through it. It changed me. It made me go, wait a minute, life is short. I'm not into this saving for I don't want to live later. Yeah. I kind of want to live now. Time is clicking. All I wanted was, I didn't care about all the wealth I had built to that point. What I cared about was I wish I had spent more time doing adventurous things with my wife and spending time with kids. All of a sudden my values changed and I walked away from the corporate world and just went into podcasting and hunting and filmmaking and not making very much money. But my values changed. I read the book. The other book was written by Tim Ferriss, and it was the 4-Hour Workweek. And in that, he kind of coached me on how to start, a lot like the book Start. He coached me on how to go from 40, 50 hours in the corporate world to 15 or 20 hours a week in the corporate world, but still getting all the same work done. It was an efficiency book. This is how you be more efficient. And then this is how you actually negotiate from your boss to work from home 3 days a week and work in the office 2 days a week, but get the same amount of work done.
What's that book called?
It's called The 4-Hour Workweek.
Okay. All right.
And in that book, I was like, oh, crap. I cut out all these meetings. I followed the prescription in the book. The meetings I set up this way. I got more efficient. I set up my emails. I had these auto responses. I had all this stuff built up.
That's funny. I lived this same thing. That's why I asked. So.
I built up all these auto processes that could function when I wasn't there. And then I had this on-call. I implemented software that would handle change. Anyway, I automated a lot of it. And it went, at first, I just saved myself about 10 hours a week. And then it was 20. And then I was getting the same work done in about 15 hours or 20 hours a week that I was getting done in 40, 50 hours a week. Yeah. And then I could go to my boss and say, hey, manage me by what I get done. And he's like, okay, I love it because you're 10 times as effective as all my other employees, just following Tim's book. Then I was like, okay, cool. Well, he didn't know what I was doing. He just knew I got the job done.
Yeah, yeah.
So I basically worked from home 3 days a week and was in the office 2 days a week. But those 3 days a week, I was just coasting. I was going to the gym, the beach. I was on call a little bit. Every now and then I get a call on the pager or the BlackBerry, and I had to answer some, emergency stuff and then get back to work. But for the most part, I had built up a job where I just started working with cameras and filming and photography and all that for fun on the side. And then it became more and more of and then that also led to my exit, reading that book. And then the Total Money Makeover I read from Dave Ramsey, which was get out of debt. Mm-hmm. We sold everything we had. I drove an $800 Dodge Neon that was rusted with the paint coming off of it for 2 years. I sold my Dodge Cummins. I sold my toy hauler. I sold my UTV, my ATVs and all that. I sold everything I owned. Only paid cash for things and paid off like $30,000 in revolving credit card debt and other crap that I had to.
Yeah.
And what that did is then I put, 3 to 6 months of expenses in the bank. So now I have like $30,000 in the bank for any emergency that might come. No need for credit cards. And if I had to pay cash, I did. That freed me up. All those pieces I was kind of laying down over the course of a decade. And so when the gritty thing came up, I was just doing the podcast for fun. Mm-hmm. But when it came up, there was no reason I couldn't just leave my other job. I had money in the bank. I didn't have any debt.
Yeah.
I knew like I had spent like a couple of years filming on the side for fun, kind of like this alternative option of a skill set I was developing while I still had this other job. Mm-hmm. Then I started making money at both. The podcast started paying me, and I also worked for Standard Insurance Company, and I did them both for like a year and a half. And when the podcast was generating, $60,000 a year, I'm still getting $140,000 a year over here, and I'm pocketed all of it.
Yeah.
And then it's like
somewhere along the way, it kind of flipped, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it was like, hey, take a pay cut, but we got a lot of money in the bank, and I have no debt, and I'm okay with smiling in a Camry.
Yeah. I think, we all have kids and stuff, and as you get a family and you get older, it gets harder to do the passion avenue and take the risk
because now you're risking your wife and your children and the whole family.
Correct. And so I think as a young man, I truly believe that you work your whatever job it is, even before college, like you're working your job, but then evenings and weekends are to build your passion.
Yeah.
To turn that passion into what you're going to make. And so, it's obviously as you get kids and get older, that's much harder to do.
I don't think modern day, back to your son, I don't think modern day I find being a doctor, anything that requires a college degree, a lawyer, all that, unless you're truly just built like that, which some people are, that is their thing, unless you're built like that, I think it's so outdated and antiquated as far as a career path goes. Mm-hmm. It's going to cost you a fortune. It's years and years. I don't know that it's as valuable as it used to be. You come saddled with debt, and it comes with a lifestyle. It's hard to escape once you've committed to it. And it just seems like there's so many cooler things you could do with your life. Mm-hmm. Hey, if you like our show and you want to support us, head over to Peaks Equipment and check out what they have. Use the code GRITTY over there and you will save. They've got the trekking poles. They've got their sleeping bag that they just dropped. Peaks has a teepee. They have gaiters. They have a headlamp. All premium products for the outdoorsman. Head over there. Use the code GRITTY. That's peaksequipment.com. Now let's get back to the show.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately too, because how do I sort of direct him? Because I feel like my story is I did the whole college thing too. Yeah. And then I even went to law school and got a law degree and practiced law for like 3 years before I finally go, yeah, I hate this.
Yeah, that's right? What I mean. Like,
so I was like, how much time did I waste? If I could have just gone back in reverse but maybe not. Maybe that process is what sort of like molded me into something that can do what I do now. And I think there is some truth to that too, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why I was asking the question.
That's a good point.
Right? I kind of hate the advice of just go, because not that you can't do it, but I think it's misleading to somebody that's 18 years old to say pursue your dreams, because what they hear is, I'm just going to go hunt all day then. That's why. And that's not what you did, right? That's not how it went.
I say all the time, 30-year-old Brian failed at what 40-year-old Brian succeeded at. Mm-hmm. And I say the same thing. I don't know if I could have made this whole thing succeed. I know I couldn't have done it when I was 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
It took that other pathway. And I have to say, a lot of my success, I think, at age 40 and on, because I'm 49 now. It's been about age 39, 40 when I started. A lot of my success was possible because of all the things I learned in my 30s, all the failures that I had. Yeah. And honestly, I was not built for accounting. I was not built for finance. I was not built for audits.
And I wasn't built to be a lawyer. So, yeah, exactly. Same. You know.
It was not my skill sets, my natural gifts, but I did it. What it gave me, though, was a gift, because even though I went down that pathway, a lot of people that are creative like I am in terms of like their filmmaking type stuff or whatever creative endeavor you engage in. And creating a movie, there's a creative aspect to it.
Absolutely.
So is like entrepreneurship and running your own business. There's a certain level of creativity you have to have, or you can't do it. So I feel like the 10-year corporate gig that I really wasn't suited for forced me into some skill sets and developing into some skill sets that I would never have gotten before, which then made it possible for me to do what I do. Because I think a lot of men and women, but men in my situation, in terms of I want to make a YouTube channel. I want to do this. I want to film my hunts and so forth. A lot of them have that creative side, but they don't have the business acumen to make it work.
Yeah.
And so you see these super talented photographers and video guys that I come across, and they're amazing, but they won't be able to do what I've done because they do not have the business acumen to pull it off. And that's, whether you like it or not, that you have to have that in order to keep doing what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And it's not great. I don't have the best business acumen compared to many that I get to rub shoulders with, but it was enough, and it has been enough. And I got that from Marriott School of Business, moving on to the career and working in the corporate
just trial
for 10
and error
years.
For a while too.
Yeah. And then it's like, I know enough that I can keep this other thing I'm more naturally gifted at doing afloat. And so with my kids, my recommendation is get a job, pay your own bills, become an adult, take on that responsibility, get yourself a car, like go out and have some experiences, just live. And, think about what it is that you love or that you want to do. And if it's, whether it's, whatever it might be, owning a gym, maybe you want to like start a company like your dad, or whatever it might be, like look at that, pursue it and so forth. But in the meantime, be an adult.
Yeah. Just find out what you're good at.
Yeah.
Right. But also stuff you're good at that has value to other people.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's kind of where, and then you
has to make money.
You sort of learn to love it at some level, right? Like you probably didn't always think, at the age of 12, you weren't like, maybe you did. I want to be a photographer. I want to learn how to.
No.
I mean, you just kind of like, whoa, like I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
And people like it. And like, that's where you kind of start going, right? And then you learn to like mold it into your life to where you love it, to where you do love it, right?
Yeah.
Not so many people get to just play basketball for their whole life because they grew up liking basketball. Like, I mean, that's rare the occasion. I mean, that's why I say maybe you're the exception. That's why I was curious at what you'd say, because you probably grew up your whole life loving hunting, and here you are making a career, both of you guys, off of hunting.
It's true, but I had so many interests.
But it didn't just happen like that, right?
I loved basketball. I loved sports. I loved fishing. Like, I love traveling the world. There's a lot of things I had interest in, and I would have. There's lots of things I love going to the gym. I loved CrossFit. I almost bought a CrossFit gym. You know, I almost went down that whole road. So I think I'd have been happy and successful there too. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, though, I think it's important that young people like grow up, get the job, pay the bills, try to be independent, like strive for that. It's like Jordan Peterson will say, you know, like make your bed.
Yeah.
Right. Do the foundational things that make you make yourself a better human being
before you go solve the world's
problems.
Yeah. But I would still say, still go be an 18-year-old kid.
For sure.
Go have fun. Mm-hmm. Like you have to. If not, life sucks and it's miserable.
Yeah.
Like you have to go have fun. But at the same time of growing up, like you have to, even if it is just enough to get by, pay your rent, pay a car, whatever it may be, do that, but also have fun. And then you can explore what it is that he might find something that he wants to do while he's doing that. I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's hard to find, like when, like you were saying, oh, just go follow your dream. Just go chase if you only do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. This, and I find like it's not very useful.
Usually,
it's not very useful
saying that are the people that did win the lottery, and they're like, you know. An A-list actor. Yeah. Like, I mean, it worked out for you, buddy.
I think if you have the entrepreneurial mindset, then that's a possibility, because you're going to, with that mindset, you know, some people have it, some people don't. You are going to figure out how to make money at doing it. But that's like I would say a small 1% of people know how to make the money at what they love to do.
Yeah. I think it goes back to starting out at that age. It's like, get a job, pay your bills, get yourself some transportation, have some dignity. Yeah. You know,
that's true.
Start out at the basics.
Start going to, just start taking steps, right?
Start living, start saving some money, date, do your thing, have some fun, be responsible, have a job. Like I read The Boys in the Boat. Mm-hmm. I got halfway through the movie, but the book's so good. I was kind of like, I got to go back to the movie, but both were good. So I hear, but the book, you know, I sit there and I'm listening to these guys talk about growing up in the 1930s and just trying to make a buck to feed their families. Yeah. And I think of my own grandfather and his story. And I feel like we have so many options now and people are so wealthy.
No kidding, right?
That they don't realize how happy you would be if you just went to a job responsibly and were independent and picked up that responsibility and carried it. If you do that, as you improve upon you as a human being and yourself and your role in society and civilization, and you're contributing in that way, in a positive way, I think the other things will come on their own over time. You're as you improve as a person, because nobody needs you. Like, or I should say, you don't need somebody else to help you get by. You're paying your own way. Mm-hmm. You're contributing the best you can. You're improving yourself so you can make more money, so that you can then have more value. You become an attractive person for a woman, if you know, a spouse, right?
That's what we're all doing it for at the end of the day. Yeah, anyways, right? I mean, come on, right?
and you've just made yourself valuable for that. You've attracted a woman who then believes in you, if you're a guy, or vice versa. I just think as those things unfold, the other stuff comes. I do believe that it is good advice to tell most young people not to go to college. I honestly believe that nowadays.
I don't disagree sometimes. Yeah. The thing is, I'm sending my son to college. So, but I totally agree because I don't know where else I don't want him to do nothing. Right.
Right.
And if he had like, hey, I want to go become an apprentice to an electrician, like, absolutely.
Yep.
Get after it. But right now he has no clue.
Yeah.
Right. Which I
think a lot of young people are in that boat.
I don't either. I didn't either at that age. So it's like, you got to do something.
I have a child who does want to go to college. Really does. Man, she's pretty much built for it. Academically, she's wired for it. It's her thing. And I'm like, actually, for you, she's also not easily swayed by weird ideas and she's like firm in where she's at. She's conservative, responsible. Like, she's a very conservative, safe type person. She has boundaries. She has firm identity. So I think, okay, she does seem like college is her next step. Mm-hmm. I have other two daughters, like, no way. That's just not their thing. That's a terrible idea. Yeah. So that's why I said I sort of put that caveat around it earlier for college. If a kid is going to school and they're built for it, that is a net logical step. Mm-hmm. But I think there's so much debt that comes with it, and so much uselessness in terms of the degrees that kids are getting. Yeah. And there's so much indoctrination and trash. And you look at most of the universities across the United States, all the worst ideas, behavior, and senses of entitlement and attitude are coming from the colleges. Mm-hmm. Do I want to send my kid there? I think my kid is like grown up enough that they're resilient against that. But when 95% of their peers are all in on that, do I really want to throw them in there? Do they have the character to stand up against that sort of brainwashing, sort of indoctrination that's happening? And I look at it and I go, how much value are they getting out of it in terms of character building, like who they are? I'd say that's not happening. And secondly, how much value are they getting out of it in terms of dollars and a degree and making money, especially when you factor in the cost of college? Mm-hmm. I'm losing faith in the institution pretty quick at that point.
It's become very much a profit generating institution, just like anything.
You forgive student loan debt, it'll just, why not charge whatever you want
and just tag it onto the government's bill, right? Yeah, I know.
Yep. There's certain schools that are in a different category, and I think there's not all of them are created equal. But yeah, I look at it and I'm like, I'm okay with delaying the college experience for my kids, especially since there's so much you can learn outside of school. But like I said, I have the one daughter who seems ideally built for it. And I don't really have a lot. If she wants to go there, I think that there's actually, for certain vocations and certain paths, this is maybe not the worst idea. Yeah. So,
and I think we've made a mistake. Probably in our generation, we were all told that is the only path.
Well,
right?
It wasn't
like you just that's what you do. There's no other option.
Yeah,
how dare you even think there is, because you're a failure if you do.
Yeah. It wasn't not true either. Because I was just saying this earlier. When I went to school, this is like 95, 6. There was no internet.
Yeah.
I mean, email was like around for 6 months or something before that. I think it was invented by Al Gore in 96. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
So
the whole internet he invented. Actually,
that's right.
Right then. Yeah.
So, I mean, at that time, if I wanted to learn something, you enrolled in college and they had libraries and books and research centers, and they basically had the internet in a room on paper.
It's called a library.
It's called a library. And you went in with your ID card and you used the little, what's that little Dewey Decimal System, and you found the books and you copied and you wrote, and that's how you figured stuff out. And teachers with experience who'd been in the workforce, who had done the thing you're trying to do, taught you the thing you were trying to do. But now, you fast forward to now, no one taught me how to edit. No one taught me how to use this camera or that gimbal or this over here. I shouldn't say that. No college taught me that.
Yeah.
The internet did. YouTube, how to blah, blah. And I learn it. I can download 20 videos on almost any subject. I'm like, how do I change the oil, the whatever on my car? This light comes on in my car. I'm my own mechanic.
You know how many home improvement projects I've done with my phone and YouTube on the side? Like, how do I fix my water heater?
Cook the brisket. There's no cooking school. There it is. Follow the instructions. It's like that across the board. And so school, when we were young, it's hard for my kids to picture how trapped you were, how confined you were to that one option of college, and how it was the window to the career. Mm-hmm. But it's just not true anymore. Mm-hmm. You can learn anything you want online now like that, and it'll probably teach you better than the school does. In fact, so much of the school now is teaching you their values, instead of vocational information.
Yeah. The problem is the system still requires the piece of paper in a lot of jobs,
It does for doctors, lawyers, the
engineers, scientists,
anything that has a certification. That's true. But anyone can be a salesman. Mm-hmm. You don't need school for that. Anyone can be, can be a content creator. Yeah. Anyone can be a journalist. You don't need accredited stuff to prevent you from engaging in a lot of those activities. But they got you by the balls when it comes to anything that requires any kind of accreditation. Yeah. Like you got to become a CPA if you want to certify.
If you want to do that. Yeah.
One thing I would say is, and I think it can relate to all three of us here in this room, is no matter what can't be replaced is hard work and doing more than is required. Because I wouldn't be here I didn't work my butt off. Honestly, well, in dedication,
The other thing to think about too is just, and this is me going off into la la land a little bit, but what will the impact of all this AI, this whole AI world that is unknown and being developed have on those jobs of the future?
Here's
being the guy that owns the company and is the entrepreneur and creates that becomes almost even more valuable because the AI is not going to own the company.
Yeah. I can't remember who said
maybe
it.
Not initially anyways, right? So there's some but a lot of those jobs, I don't know, it's going to create all kinds of opportunities.
I can't remember who said this, and they basically said, there's going to be some jobs and stuff that AI does replace, but the ones that will always have a job are those who understand and learn how to use AI. Mm-hmm. And I think understanding that and learning how to use it and using it to its potentials and being the one running that, that's where those are the ones that are just
it's sort of like when computers came on the scene. It was like, computers are going to take over jobs, but the people who know how to use the computers are going to be ahead of those who don't, in some ways. I want to touch on what Brad said earlier, just a moment ago. When I met Brad, the reason that I hired Brad and sort of recruited Brad and had Brad come on board wasn't because he was some amazing photographer and film guy or anything else. He didn't really know how to do any of that. He didn't know how to edit movies, really didn't have any skill sets at all. What I saw in Brad was a hardworking person, insanely hardworking, diligent, willing to put in the hours person, which is rare. Like the work ethic in a lot.
I think you remember I think you told me you dragged him up on a mountain and he had to carry back double the amount of it. And you're like, oh wow, that dude knows how to work and he doesn't. Yeah.
And it wasn't just physical. It was, behind the desk too. Mm-hmm. So the work ethic was strong, and that's rare. And the second part was character. I was looking at Brad years ago and I'm like, well, he's not that polished in front of the camera. He's not Mr. Charismatic. He's not, there's all these things that he doesn't quite have in line, but what he does have is character and a work ethic. Mm-hmm. And it's just like in sports, you see that guy that has character and work ethic, and then you have the guy that's so gifted. Mm-hmm. You fast forward 5 to 10 years, the guy with the character and the work ethic is the guy that's still there in the NBA, whatever. Yeah. The guy with all the talent in the world that lacked the character, that lacked the work ethic, he's not there. Mm-hmm. So I just needed to see those two things that you can't teach.
Yeah.
And that are highly valuable. And the rest we could figure out. And like, I'm trying to teach my kids, and I'm back to my original comment early on, was if your kid has character and work ethic, if they're paying their own bills, if they're out there making themselves a better human being, all the other stuff will fix itself over time. But it's the young people who are activists that are looking to change the world before they fix themselves. The young people who get a lot of handouts and everything taken care of for them, and then in their own head act like they earned it all. The entitlement. Those are the kids, the young people that are doomed, that are always going to be ill-content, unhappy, unsatisfied.
And don't you think at some level it's a lack of having done the hard things and gained that confidence through that maybe pushes them into these paths where they're just like, I don't have a purpose, I don't have a cause, because you have to do those hard things to gain the things, the steps, right? Like like you said, get a job, live on your own, go do these things, like learn that, oh, I can do this, right? And it sort of like builds on itself. But if you just hand it to everybody all the time, they graduate from college with some nonsense degree, but they still don't have any confidence to actually go do anything. So then they're just mad at the world, and then they go protest whatever they're protesting.
Yeah.
Right?
That's why I ask if he has like the kind of the entrepreneur mentality already. If he does, then he'll do great, because don't go to college and make enough to just make a living and work on building the business.
I think sometimes it's hard to know. Like
it is.
My young kids, they respect their parents and they appreciate us, and but they're still not out on their own completely. They haven't flown the nest just yet. They're right at that age, and they still need to do that. But once they are making their own way and they are paying their own bills and they are, there's going to be a change in who they are. That has to happen. And there has to be a dedication to self-improvement to make yourself a better human being. If you're focused on becoming better as a person and to the world around you, all that other stuff will fall into place on its own. But it's hard. A lot of young people are not interested and it doesn't even cross their mind. Years ago, I read the book Ego is the Enemy. And it's all about pride and ego and how it really ruins your life and how it can ruin your life. I gave that book to our friend, Corey Jacobson, over at Elk 101, and he had read the book. He said, man, Brian, I was about 2/3 of the way through the book. And the whole time I'm like, man, this guy should read this book. And that guy should read this book. And man, my dad should read, like all these people should read, not him.
Yeah.
He got 2/3 through the book before he realized, oh, this book's about me. I'm the guy with the pride. Yeah. I'm the guy with the ego. And I think from that stems growth, because then when you recognize that, you're not entitled, you have all these problems, that you're weak, that you have all these, then you can progress because you can fix who you are. You can become better. And I look at, in the book, he says, pride and ego, they're a daily roll call, meaning that every day you've got to ask yourself, am I being egotistical? Am I being proud right now? It's something you have to check yourself on every day in every conversation. Just because you had it mastered a month ago doesn't mean you have it mastered today. Somebody that you are best friends with just went out and now they just had this thing happen and this thing happened and this thing happened, and you feel like you should have got it long before them, and you're more deserving of the accolades than they are. They're almost stolen valor, and your attitude is to tear them down and find out every reason. And instead of like looking in the mirror going, why maybe I'm not quite what I thought I was. And then also swallowing your pride and saying, you know what, I'm really proud of you and I'm happy for your success. Those are things that most humans don't even consider or think about. They don't go that deep, which that's why I was trying to tell my kids, every day is a roll call. Every day is a self-assessment. Am I becoming a better person than I was yesterday? Am I kicking pride to the side? Am I humble? Am I genuinely happy for the success of my friends?
It's hard to answer those questions honestly about yourself too, isn't it? Like, just it's hard.
So easy to lie to yourself.
That's why you need people around you that will tell you the truth, right? And not lie to you and tell you what you want to hear.
Well, I'm all my friends that are around me. They got thick skin because I just speak my mind. I tell them if they suck at things, and I'm not the most. You can ask Brad. I'm not necessarily the most diplomatic at times, but it's coming from a place of, I might be wrong, by the way, and I'll acknowledge that. I think I'm right when I'm criticizing something or someone, but I'm not doing it because I want to hurt them. I'm doing it because I really want better, and I want the same in return.
Yeah,
I want you to say you sucked at this, or I really disagree with you on that. I want that pushback. When Brad and I first started working together, Brad's a pleaser. He wants to make people happy. I think his mom's a lot like that, and having spent time with her, and Brad's like right in that vein, and so Brad's just trying to please me, across the board all the time, and I didn't want Brad to please me. I just wanted Brad to excel, and so there were times where Brad just would say or do something that he thought was the thing I wanted, but that's not quite what I wanted. I wanted it to be his vision, not mine. Don't try to guess what I want and deliver that. I want you to use your own independent opinion and judgment and taste for like an edit. Can disagree with me, but I don't want you to be mini me, pleasing me. I want you to be you. And there were a few times where I jumped all over his case, and then Brad would just say, "Oh, okay, I'm going to fix that. I'm sorry." That's not what I wanted either. I wanted him to say, "Hey, asshole, I completely disagree with your opinion here, and I think you're wrong." And I would be hard on Brad, and push Brad until Brad started to get angry at me and cuss me out in turn. And once he started,
yes,
that's what I wanted. I wanted Brad to have that, to stop trying to please and really fight with me, and hold his own opinions. And but that takes someone of Brad's character to take the criticism, but then also stand up for himself. And it's a delicate thing to do. You do it with your own kids. I try to do it with my own kids, criticize them, but also, and tell the truth, but also not destroy them.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, I got us off on a tangent there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a cool conversation. I also think that it's important for people to know, if they're going to go out and support brands nowadays, they need to know the people behind the brands. Like, we feel more strongly about that than anything. Yeah. There's a lot of places people can go buy camping gear or a cooler.
Yeah.
What I want the audience to know is who they're buying from. Because nowadays there's a lot of great options out there.
Yeah.
There's not just Blue Coolers.
Yeah.
There's not just Caddis. I want them, but there's a lot of those that don't support your values and aren't on the same page as you. And I don't want to make those brands more powerful. And that's what you're doing when you purchase from them. Yeah. So, when Ryan and I have these conversations a lot, as we work with different companies, and it's a continual look. We got to build our own little empire of brands and companies we work with that espouse our values. Because we could take a check from some other brands that make a good product, but then take all that income to take away my Second Amendment rights. Or whatever, or to put porn in schools, So, anyway, I appreciate you coming down and having the conversation with us.
Absolutely, it's been fun. Been a good conversation.
People who want to get a cooler, go to Blue Coolers.
Yeah, you can go to Blue Coolers or CaddisSports.com. Coolers can be found both locations. Sweet. Caddis Sports products are all on CaddisSports.com.
Yeah. They got a lot of gear stuff.
Brad's been shopping, and they can use the code GRITTY.
Yep, on both locations, and we're running promotions all the time, but the code will always be there.
Sweet.
So, and it's just a site-wide. I believe we got 15% off site-wide for Gritty, so which is as aggressive we get.
That's awesome.
Coolers, just so you know, it's just not a high-margin deal, especially at the prices we sell. So you won't ever find us at 50% off or anything like that. I'll be out of business real fast.
15% is a great discount.
Yeah. That's the thing is with Caddis now, go check out. There's fly fishing stuff. There's camping stuff. There's a lot there.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing is shopping for the chairs and the camp kitchens and the tables.
And we just hope you guys go try out one thing, see what you like, see if it works for you, see how the quality is, and then hopefully we gain your trust and you can come back for more later. And
we'll be running a bunch of that stuff too. And people that are listening, they'll hear a little bit more about it in various podcasts.
Yep.
But also, we're going to be using this, like I said, on a bunch of these comfort camping trips that we're on.
Yeah.
So we'll have a chance to showcase some of the stuff and talk about it a little bit here and there. But
beat it up, man. Tell me how you like it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we will, for sure. We got a lot of stuff coming up for the use of this stuff.
Yes, we do. TAC, Western Hunting Summit.
Yep. Your couple hunts.
Couple hunts. Yep.
Yeah.
It's going to be cool. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in, supporting our show. As always, check out Blue Coolers and Caddis Sports Equipment. Is that what it is?
Just caddissports.com.
Yep. Caddissports.com. And thanks again. Stay gritty.